This is the Chefman 12-quart 5-in-1 air fryer oven. I've been using this for a while now, so I figured I'd share some thoughts. What stood out to me right away was the shape. It is taller than a regular basket-style air fryer, but it does not take up as much horizontal counter space as some toaster ovens. It measures about 13 inches wide and a little under 15 inches tall. I still had to measure the area under my cabinets before setting it up. The rear vent pushes out hot air, so I leave space between the oven and the wall. I also keep it away from outlets and anything that could be affected by heat. The sides do not get as hot as I expected, but I still avoid placing anything close to the unit while it is running. Setup was simple. I removed the packaging, washed the racks and trays, and ran the oven empty before cooking food in it. There was a slight new appliance smell during that empty cycle. It faded after I used the oven a couple of times. The controls are on the front touchscreen. The buttons are easy to see when the panel is lit. I can choose a cooking setting and adjust the time or temperature without much trouble. There are several presets, but I mostly set the time and temperature myself. That gives me more control, especially when cooking smaller portions. One thing I noticed is that the timer starts counting down as soon as I start the oven. It does not wait for the cooking chamber to preheat. I usually let it run empty for 3 to 5 minutes, then add the food and reset the time. It is not difficult, but it is something I had to get used to. The 12-quart capacity works well for the amount of food I usually make. There are 3 rack positions, so I can spread food out instead of stacking it in a deep basket. I have cooked fries on 2 racks, reheated pizza slices, baked small items, and made chicken with the rotisserie attachment. The racks are about 10 inches wide inside. That is enough for many everyday foods, but a standard 12-inch frozen pizza will not fit. Smaller pizzas and individual slices are fine. The tall shape gives me more vertical room, though horizontal space is limited. Cooking performance has been consistent once I learned where to place the racks. Most of the heat comes from the top, so food on the upper rack browns faster. When I use more than one level, I swap the racks halfway through the cooking time. I also turn or flip the food when needed. If I leave everything in the same position, the top tray can get crisp while the lower tray still needs more time. Fries come out crisp when I avoid crowding the racks. A light coating of oil helps, but I do not need much. Chicken pieces brown well and stay fairly juicy as long as I check them early. Reheated food is also better than it is from my microwave because bread and fried food do not come out soft. The rotisserie setup took me a little longer to understand. I had to make sure the food was centered and secured tightly on the spit. Once it was balanced, it rotated without trouble. I used it with a small whole chicken, and the skin browned nicely, while the drippings collected in the tray below. I would not try to fit a large chicken in this oven because the heating element is close to the top. Compared with a drawer-style air fryer, I like being able to see the food through the glass door. The interior light helps me check browning without opening the door. I also like laying food flat across the racks. With my old basket fryer, I had to shake the basket more often and larger pieces sometimes sat on top of each other. The trade-off is that this takes more effort to clean. Crumbs and grease can collect around the door and at the bottom of the cooking chamber. I keep the drip tray in place and wipe the interior after it cools. If I wait too long, grease is harder to remove. The removable racks and metal tools can go on the top rack of my dishwasher. I usually wash the coated drip pan by hand because I want to avoid damaging the surface. The door opens downward, and crumbs sometimes fall onto the glass while I pull out a rack. I put a towel or mat under the front when cooking something greasy. The fan is noticeable, but it is not unusually loud. It sounds similar to a countertop convection oven. It also heats up quickly and does not make my kitchen feel as warm as my full-size oven. That is one reason I use it for smaller meals. I was concerned that the touchscreen might be annoying during daily use. It has been responsive for me, although it can be harder to use if my fingers are wet or greasy. I wipe my hands before changing a setting. I also check that the correct time and temperature is shown before walking away. Temperature settings may vary a little by model. Mine is most useful within the usual air frying range, and I would check the exact maximum temperature on the specific unit before buying. I would also inspect the box after opening it. Chefman has sold similar versions with different accessories, so it is worth confirming that the racks, Drip tray, rotisserie parts, and any advertised probe are included. I think this oven makes sense for my small family meals, meal prep, and situations where I want several pieces of food spread across separate racks. It is also useful when I do not want to heat a full-size oven. I would be less likely to choose it for large pizzas, wide baking dishes, or large cuts of meat. My experience has been mostly positive, but it took some adjustment. I manually preheat it, leave room behind the rear vent, and rotate the racks during longer cooking cycles. Those small habits give me more even results. I would recommend considering it if a tall countertop oven fits the available space and the 3-rack layout sounds more useful than a drawer basket. Just keep the narrow interior, cleanup, and rack rotation in mind. Leave any questions in the comments, and I'll share what I can based on my experience. Check the comments of this video for a link to see the current pricing of the Chefman 12-quart 5-in-1 air fryer oven. Thank you for watching.